everybody. I'm Colin Caleb, aka DJ Huggy B, the host of Real Talk, Straight Talk. On Tuesday, September 20th, all Canadians go to the poll. For the last few weeks, we've been having that discussion here on Real Talk. The question is, have you made your decision yet? I want you to join us on Tuesday with our panel, and we're going to help you with that decision. We're going to go through the pros and cons. Once again, Tuesday night, Real Talk, Straight Talk, 7 p.m. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk, Straight Talk. Did I get that right? Got to send a big shout out to my technical crew. I always do that each and every week. And of course, the panel. If you're here last week, you know the panel is exactly the same. We have Pastor Charmaine, Angel, and of course, Omar at the other end. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us.
All right. Hope everybody had a good week. September 20th, we go back to the polls. We talked about it last week, so we're just going to do a little recap of what we discussed. Last week, the conversation was, how do we encourage our community to vote? And I talked a little bit about myself and my struggles with voting, which I promised that I will definitely vote this year. We all gave reasons why, so I think we're probably in agreement. Probably one of the few times that, as a panel, that we're all in agreement on an issue. So we all agreed that voting is important.
Very important.
Right? So I'm going to go from, I can't say left to right, so it's always going to be from my right. I'm going to pass it over to Pastor Charmaine, say hi, and pass it on, and then talk a little bit about why our community should vote.
Well, for me, I will be voting, and I'm looking forward to that, to vote for the right party. And it will be my party, it's the right party. Yeah. And to encourage each and every one of us that we should go to the polls. We should make our opinions known. We should say what we believe in and what we want to see the parties, what our outcome, what we want. So we have to vote to get what we need. Angel?
That's right. I'm in full agreement with you there, Sister Charmaine. I am also going to be voting for the right party, which is my party. And it is important for us to go vote, and I still stand with what I said last week, as it's a right and not a privilege. So I feel we should all go out there and vote for the parties that you see that suits what you are interested in, and also ask for what it is that you want.
Okay. So I believe, and I mentioned this last week, that our rights are enshrined in the Constitution. And part of being a responsible citizen is that you must become a part of the political process, because whether you like it or not, it's the political process that influences our lives. Now, the only way we can change things, the only way we can actively advocate for those of us who are lesser off, is by voting and making our voices be heard and having healthy debates like what we're doing here on this program. So thank you.
Well, I think it's a little less of a debate, right? What do we say to the people that say they're too busy and they don't feel that the parties represent them? One of the biggest things is being an immigrant coming into Canada is when you don't have suitable candidates that you think look like you, or even if they don't look like you, you don't think they represent your values, right, or your interest, right? When we move outside of cities, and we talked about this last week, when we move outside of cities like such as Toronto and Nova Scotia's always had black representation. London is, as I believe there's 2 people this year. When you go to the smaller cities, you don't feel, right? And it goes along hand in hand with what we said, with some of the things that were said as immigrants. Sometimes we're coming from places where we didn't even pay attention to the politics from where we came from. So here we are in a new country. Why should we pay attention to the politics when we don't think it represents us? And Omar actually answered a little bit about that, so I'm going to turn it back over to Omar.
Okay, so as I said, for anyone out there who's listening, you live in a functioning democracy. Your rights are enshrined in the Constitution, and it's a fundamental right that you should participate in the process. Now, failing to do so means that decisions will be made that you might not necessarily agree with, and you and I always will be affected by the consequences of these decisions. So I want to encourage people to stop staying on the fences, get involved, go to the platforms, read about the issues, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends at school, and anybody in the community that could help to give you some type of direction, because elections are critical to the governance of a country, and the issues that the political leaders put forward are really essential in terms of shaping our lives. So you should become a part of that process.
Now, this year, a lot of COVID, right? People's rights, people's freedoms. Where would you like whoever you vote for to stand on freedoms? And do you think there's a loss of freedoms with such things as the vaccine passport, the mandatory needles that we have to take? There's so many people that are saying that, you know what, it's a loss of freedom. We have the right to choose. So many people have said, it's our bodies, we have the right to choose. There's a lockdown. We don't feel there should be lockdowns. People will look at other countries and say, well, this place isn't locking down and that place isn't locking down. So why should we, right? There are people that give you factual information. There are people that give you not so factual information. Where do you stand? Where I'm gonna ask you all as an individuals, where do you stand on what you'd like to, your candidates to address in terms of the freedoms or the non-freedoms that have come with having to take the vaccine, or are you in favor?
Well, I believe that people should have the right to take the vaccine.
Yes.
They have the choice, because there can be different reasons why people choose not to do something. But that is a personal thing. Mm-hmm. I believe that's a personal thing. Some people have allergies to certain things, and I'm just going from the medical point of view, right? Mm-hmm. And some people may have allergies, and we don't know why, but that should be a choice. I think we have to be very careful the boundaries of where freedoms are taken away from. It's not just COVID, it's in general. How is your freedom being affected? Your rights? Because we seem to be so much caught up with COVID, but it's not so much COVID that is being affected when your freedom is taken away from you. So there is a bigger picture, because it starts somewhere. So it may start with COVID, and then it will move and escalate to something else till one day we have no voice. And we can understand that coming from a minority background. We can understand that it just begins with something small. And I'm not saying COVID is something small that we shouldn't be concerned, but people should have the right to choose. And even if I have the vaccine and someone doesn't have the vaccine, they shouldn't look down on me, and I shouldn't look down on them if they choose not to have the vaccine. We, that, because now we're pitting each other against, and that's not, we are human beings. We should not pit ourselves. We shouldn't be fighting over a vaccine. That should not be what we should be fighting over.
So now that's personal freedom, and I'm going to talk. So we're personal freedom, health. There are other people that are going to say health is more important than personal freedom, right? So, but I'm going to leave that alone, and I'm going to let Angel say her piece.
Well, this is a very touchy subject,
Yes.
as we all know, and everyone has an opinion in regards to this. And just speaking on for politics, obviously, everyone is representing. There's some people who are like, we don't want the vaccine to be mandatory. Some people want it to be mandatory. And I am kind of feeling that freedom of speech, freedom of choice, freedom of everything is something that, as a democratic country, is something that people should have. And for that to be taken away, it's something that, as a voter, I would like to see what I want done right, So people should be allowed to choose. That's what it just boils down to. And that's my piece.
Omar, where do you stand?
I think my best understanding of a constitution, no, I'm not a legal person, but rights are fundamental, they're not absolute. So I think we really need to put this into context. You're entitled to your rights are fundamental, they're enshrined in the Constitution, but they're not absolute. Okay? And I'm not really in a position to lecture or to talk to people about vaccination or not vaccinate, but I think everybody needs to recognize that we've been hit with a crisis that we've never seen before, and it has been extremely disruptive. A lot of people have died, and I think we need to, we elect governments to make the best decisions for us. And I think at this point in time, people should really take some time and listen to the people that are advising the government on both sides, and make the best choices as to how we can return back to some form of normalcy. On a personal note, I don't think a mandatory vaccination is infringing on my personal rights. I don't see it like that.
We've got some people online, and we've got Mel. I got to say hi, Mel. She's been a regular on the show, and she talks about voting for the very first time. Congratulations, Mel. And I'm going to say congratulations to anybody that exercises the right to vote. All right, so Mel, welcome, and once again, congratulations. Once again, for everybody, you can hit us up also you can call in. The number is 519-694-3429. We're talking about voting. We'd like our community to represent themselves. And not just our community, every community, right? That's the thing. It's not a black community problem. I think a lot of it is more along economic, on an economic lines, where you find that as lower income, you tend to pay less attention to politics, right? But yet still, likewise in our community, when we don't get the things that we want, we tend to complain. Now, our complaints might only be at the dinner table, or when we're, at sporting engagements, like when we're playing dominoes in the Caribbean community, or in our, little get-togethers, right? So we'll complain there, right? But here's the thing about voting. Voting gives you the chance to complain on a bigger level. If something truly bothers you and you voted for somebody and they're in a position, you have the right to call them and say, or talk to them and say, hey, you know what, I voted for you. There are things I'm not clear about, talk to me, right? Whether or not they respond, it's a different story, but you still do have the right to engage with your local representatives, right? But to do that, a obviously you have to be a part of the system. So once again, it comes back where we tell you, yes, vote, right? Today, we're very fortunate to have in the studio Mark Emery, and Mark Emery is from the People's Party of Canada. When the voting came up, when it was first announced, we actually sent out some feelers. We tried to talk to certain of the people that were running. I'm not going to say we reached out to Mark. No, we didn't reach out to Mark, so which makes it even better that Angel reached out to Mark and during a conversation, and Mark agreed to come on the show. So I'm going to thank him.
Thank you.
People were going to be bringing him up in about 20 minutes or so, but I'm just paving the way. There's so many people that we actually sent out. I'm not going to call names. We did the Facebook thing, and they're on there. We know whether they read the message, whether it's somebody in their organization that read the message. We know some of the messages were read. There were not any answers. We weren't answered, right? I personally am going to address that, and I talked about this a little bit last week. I intend to address it afterwards. I think whenever somebody comes to you in a proper way and you're trying to get votes, you should engage with people that are trying to engage you, right? Especially if it's done in a respectful and a proper manner, right? There's so much ignorance going on out there right now. We know on the campaign trail, Justin Trudeau has faced his. We're in a different time. There is so much, right? And so I'm going to focus a little bit on the three major parties. How many parties are out there right now? There's 5, right?
There's 5, yeah.
There is obviously the Liberals, the Conservatives,
NDP,
right? The PPC and the Green Party,
Yeah.
right? So I'm going to try to get through the names of the leaders. Of course, we know Justin Trudeau, Aaron O'Toole for the Conservatives, Jack
Marini, and
Yeah, you got it.
what's her name?
Amy
Just
Paul,
sing?
Amy Paul,
Yeah, that's what I-
Amy
yeah,
Paul,
Paul,
right?
yeah.
Jagmeet Singh,
Yeah.
right? And I believe it's Maxine Bernier.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go 5 for 5, right? I never paid attention to the PPC, and I'm going to say until I started and I'm going to say I really started paying attention last night. Thank you, Angel. That's not something that I should be paying attention to everybody, so to all the parties.
Yeah.
I paid a certain amount of attention to the Green Party.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always been the big 3.
That's true.
What do you think? Right now, I believe there's a tie in the polls between. They're saying this morning I woke up and they said once again the Liberals are in a tie with the Conservatives, right? It seemed to be going back and forth between Aaron O'Toole and Liberals, right? In the Black community, we've always voted a lot Liberals.
Yeah.
We've been very liberal based because I think part of it is the name, the Liberals, right? And I remember coming from Jamaica, when I heard Liberals, that was it. I didn't need to look at anything because I thought Liberals was exactly as it is. Whether or not I actually looked at what they represented, just the name alone, right?
Yeah.
And I think on certain, and I'm going to say certain because I know my friend at the other end there, he is so red, and he would have done his homework, right?
Yeah.
And so I want him to share some of his homework because I always like when Omar talks. Omar's always prepared, so I am going to throw him under the proverbial bus. Omar. And I don't want it on a personal perspective unless you choose to go there. The parties. Did you do a breakdown on at least the major 3 or?
I did look at some of their platforms. Yes, I
Yes.
did. There's 5 of them, so it's really hard
Yes.
to keep track. But yes, I have looked at some. I think the major issues that are affecting the BIPOC community is obviously access to affordable housing.
Yes.
There is the issue of immigration also for a lot of people in terms of that. And I think issues with crime and violence and access to equal opportunities, issues of discrimination. Those are some of the major issues that are impacting the community. But on a platform level, very few parties have put together something actionable, could say that I'm going to target these particular areas for these community, but it's more in general about what's best for Canada and moving forward in terms of creating a harmonious society.
Do you think the parties should make an effort to break it down a little bit further, take it from as you said, if we've got the Canada in general, right? Should they be addressing certain aspects of the Canadian society, such as the BIPOC community, such as the LGBTQ community? We know they're addressing
I'm not necessarily sure that's the best way to do, because Canada is a very diverse country with a lot of people, and you don't want it to seem as if a lot of people have an opinion now about the Liberal Party, that it's being swung in certain direction by certain particular interest groups.
Yeah.
I think you need to have a holistic view of what the issues are, but in the details, you must have specific plans that are targeting certain communities that are affected. There's one in particular that has been very topical of lately, and that's the Indigenous community, in terms of a pipeline, the residential schools,
Water.
the crime, violence,
water.
and stuff like that. So I think it would be foolhardy for any party not to come forward with some type of actionable information in how they can address some of these concerns by a very important demographic of the population.
And then there's some people out there that are going to say, well, there's so much attention being made to the indigenous community, then other communities are going to be overlooked.
Well, that's the beauty of living. That's the beauty and the challenge of living in a democracy. You have competing interests, and it's those people who advocate the loudest, and credit to them, they have been underserved by the federal government. They have been unfairly disadvantaged, and kudos to them if they're able to get their voices heard. So it makes all the political parties stop and listen to them. And I can tell you, of the 5 political parties, each one of them have
action
a
plan
segment dedicated
dedicated.
on their platform to dealing with Indigenous people. So that's credit to them.
Yeah, and I'm glad, the one point I'm glad that you articulated was who speaks the loudest. We touched on that a little bit last week, and we talked about the Muslim community. We talked about the events that, obviously the tragic events that happened a little while in London, and it allowed them to organize, and it allowed them to raise their voices. Now they raised their voices so much that on the tragedy, and it's not just raising the voices, the tragedy itself was as it is, a tragedy. And all the parties represented themselves at the tragedy, right? About 2 weeks after the tragedy happened, we had one of our episodes, we had a gentleman by the name of Patrice Robinson. And Patrice Robinson articulated a tragedy that happened with his family about 15 years ago, where his brother was run over on Richmond Street. The gentleman, there was not so much as an altercation, but the gentleman saw fit to run him over. There was a sense that it should have been addressed as a hate crime, and it wasn't. Ultimately, there wasn't much done, and he was always campaigning on, you know what, there are things that happen in the black community, and one of the things is we don't have the voice that allows our issues to be raised outside of a whimper, right? And then it got back into, well, the black community is not voting the way it should be voting, right? And so when you talk about being able to apply pressure by raising your voice, that's one thing I'm saying to our community in general, that you don't have to be ignorant to raise your voice, right? We're not talking about ignorancy, we're not talking about violence, we're not talking about anything other than coming together and raising your voice, that if there are things that you don't think are being addressed, then it's your right to address it, right? We also talk about the economic disparity in our communities, that we don't wield the economic clout. We've talked about how do we bring each other together, because as much as it's labeled the black community, there is no such thing as a singular black community. There are black communities because all our people don't just come from one place, right? So so it can't be a singular black community, right?
And just touching on all this, as Omar mentioned, he who speaks the loudest will be heard. And honestly, too, just looking at what has happened right now in the indigenous community, just going back there, there's just so much that's just being unfolded, like all these children who were found. So yes, it is a concern, and that's the reason why it's highlighted more, because of all the things that have happened. They had to take down Ryerson University and change the name, and I was saying to my kids, look, I went to Ryerson. In the future, I can't say, oh, I went to Ryerson, because they won't know what that is, because the name has changed because of things that have happened to the indigenous community. So yes, it's good that certain things are addressed in the way that they are, and airing our opinions and speaking up is really important. I don't know if anyone else got a message. I got a message today from the Congress of Labor, and a text message saying, "Hi Angel, are you going to vote?" To which I responded, yes. And the good thing is, when I responded that, they sent me a link and said, oh, we're glad to hear that. Make sure you go on the 20th and so forth. And they sent me a link. They said, we would like to hear what you would like to see improve in the labor sector, which I think is really good, because it's encouragement. Because a lot of people have that excuse, I'm too busy, I can't go vote. But if the Labor Congress is actually reaching out to people to say, hey, take time out and go vote, and let us know what it is we can change, and do a survey, and that means that there's some progress there. And if we all look at it and say, okay, I want to be a part of this and be a part of change, I'm sure there's a better tomorrow for our children. And it's important as a black community. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that we will touch on later on, as well as we look at what the People's Party represents, that we're represented by all parties. You know what I mean? And that's important, because every party comes with its own agenda. And with its own agenda, there's always something nice about it, right?
Yeah.
There's always a few things you can pick from each party to say, okay, I'm for that. And so some parties you would think have the same, somewhat the same agendas, but some to an extreme level. Just like, why don't these ones just merge? Like, you look at the NDP and the Liberals, and you just, why don't these guys just merge and just come to an agreement, and then just have one party, so we don't have so many people to look at? But that's the order of it. But bottom line, we have to air out what it is we want and where we want to see ourselves go.
If I might add quickly, the Conservative Party have put forward 6 indigenous candidates, and they have 14 candidates that have identified as Black or Caribbean, 10 candidates as Muslim, and several other candidates from the LGBT community. The Bloc Québécois have identified that 13 of their candidates are diverse. They haven't really said how the diversity
I'm
is.
reading that. They didn't say that.
Amazing.
Yeah, the NDP identified 29 of their candidates from indigenous bloc, and about 104 candidates from people of color. The Liberals, 18 candidates identify themselves as Black, over 25 as indigenous. So the question comes here is that we have people from our community that are inside of these parties. The People's Party of Canada, they haven't indicated, according to the CBC report, how much, what's their demographic breakdown. But the point I was trying to make here is that there are people from various walks, minorities that are represented in these party, and the question becomes, how do you and I hold them accountable that the issues that are affecting us are debated at the table so we can be included in what's going on moving forward?
That's right. And looking at London as a whole, like in the past few months, let's say a year to be, there's so much gun crime and a lot of crime is happening in London. London was peaceful. Most people moved from Toronto saying, oh, I'm going to London for a better future for my kids and raising my kids right. But now there's so much violence, and like that's one of the things that would like the party leaders to kind of address, especially in our London community, as you know.
Well, just to say something about
Sure,
crime in London, I had an experience some years back that I went to White Oaks Mall, came out of my car, went to the Bay at the time, and came back out and my car was gone. And when I asked the police, I said, I didn't even realize we had so many people stealing cars, because by then I worked at the hospital. I started, you start to talk and then you find out that people's cars were stolen. And one of the things I realized with London, we are very, we don't let everyone knows what's going on, because there's things that are going on here that you don't know, because they do not make it come forth, because they want our city to look good. And the police said that to me, because I said I didn't realize that this, this was so prevalent. And so one of the things that we have to be aware and mindful is be more aware of what's going on.
That's right.
Because there are things that are not being broadcast to our eyes, because again, we want to be feeling safe. There are things that are happening that sometimes we don't see it on the news, but it's happening.
And the point that the pastor raised a while ago is very important, because it just speaks, the example that she gave right there just totally gives you some perspective how issues that affect minority communities are addressed in Canada. So you probably watch on the news and you saw the racial disharmony that's going on in the US, and it's magnified. It gets a fair share of your coverage. Here in Canada, when things happen, we do a pretty good job at keeping it on the wrap. So it's literally a 5-day wonder and it goes away. Meanwhile, our brothers and sisters to the south, they keep driving these issues because it's fundamental to impacting change.
Yes. I'm going to touch on Angel. Angel, I believe that, as you said, it was good that you were reached out to and asked if you were going to vote. But we can't always look and expect people to want to reach out to us. I think, as Omar says, sometimes is once again that word pressure. We actually have to develop our own ways. We as a community need to inform our community and that, hey, elections are here, you have a right to vote. Because if we sit back and say, well, you know what, let's let the labor board, let's let other people talk to us, then you know how that actually works out. Because traditionally our community is very, very laid back, right? So, and one of the things that I talked about last week is that, yes, you know what, we got into the game with this election late, but I said for the following elections, whenever the next one comes up, we as not only the podcast, but as an entity, EVOMM3, we partner with the Wien Community Center on so many things. We're going to make it so that, yes, let's get people up to speed. Let's start the process, right? Let's not even wait till an election comes along before we start to educate and talk to our community about voting, right? It should be literally, okay, you know what, September 20th comes up, we get whoever's we, you know, everything is decided, we know who's in power, whatever, and then literally a week after we should be on the road saying, hey, this is a plan that we need to develop, let's go out, let's get our community involved, right? There's an organization, 1834, and I know they started in Ottawa, and what they do is they encourage university and college students to vote in the black community. One of the guys I deal with, Jose, yeah, he's an accountant and a DJ at the same time. He actually introduced me to them because he DJ'd some functions, right? And they're one of the organizations. They don't wait until an election is called. They're actively trying to engage college and university students in getting them to turn out. Now, just before you come, we're at that time. We're almost at that time. For everybody listening, once again, we do have a guest in the house representing from the People's Party of Canada. Mark Emery is here. He's running in the London North Centre. He's the only one so far that has accepted it and come on the show. So I want to thank him for being here, right? I gotta say goodbye to Sister Charmaine. Oh my gosh, Charmaine. It's all love with Sister Charmaine. And people, you know, occasionally we talk about, you know, we make a few jokes, and she is my boss, by the way, at the community center. And this is the one time I get to kick my boss off my show. So, jokingly, can you please get off my show? Thank you. All right.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you, sister.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Mark. Welcome. We're going to welcome Mark to the show. We're going to get him in the seat. Yes. And
I'm the only one that accepted your invitation? Wow.
Yes. Can we get yes. Mark, welcome to the show. You are the only person that accepted an invitation. So once again, thank you. I'm not sure why. I'm not going to get into why I think they did or didn't, right? But the point is somebody did, and you've been listening in for the last 39 minutes, right? So you get an idea of where we're going with this, right? And what we would like to see and what we represent.
And I think your whole approach is wrong.
And that's why it's called...
First of all, you're operating under a lot of false assumptions.
Yes.
You think there's a difference between the Conservatives, Liberals, NDP, and Greens. There's no difference. I don't even know if you could tell me a difference. Their only difference is the amount of money they want to throw at any given problem.
Okay.
But that's all they do. They throw money at what they perceive as problems. And usually these are problems created by the government themselves. Individuals tend to try and solve their problems, but governments exploit problems to make themselves more powerful, more centralized, and controlling of us. For example, none of you really discussed the dictatorship we're under. I couldn't see my brother or my family for a year. I couldn't leave my home. I got fined going to a rally. I couldn't go to a public park. I can't fly in a few days to British Columbia to see my family because I'm not double vaccinated. You know, we're living under tyrannical times with unusual powers usurped by the government that totally violate our charter rights of mobility, of assembly, of speech, of so many things, and you're not really talking about it at all. You're talking about it like it, and you said a crisis can justify superseding our charter rights. No crisis should ever take away our fundamental rights of speech, assembly, mobility,
Mark,
jobs,
if
business.
I may interrupt, just want to, I did say that the rights are fundamental. They're not
Right.
absolute.
Yes, they
That's
should
what I
be,
said.
though.
Well, that's what is written in
That's
the
what the
Consti-
People's Party, we
No,
would
no, no.
take away the
Here's
notwithstanding
what-
clause.
That's what is written in the charter. So
Right.
you can disagree with the charter. I'm saying that the rights are
No, I agree
fundamental.
with the charter. I disagree with the government seizing and usurping our rights
Okay,
under
and-
the charter for such a contrived explanation as this. This is a manufactured crisis.
No. I get the point that your party has a different view on how the country has been run for the last 2 years. I get that. I have my own concerns too. But I guess what we are saying is that some of the issues that are predominantly impacting our community, even prior to the pandemic, those are some of
Well,
the
you were
issues that
talking
we're
about the
trying to
importance
talk
of
about.
voting, but I didn't hear one good reason to vote from you, because all four parties are identical. We call them the uniparty, because there is there was no objection from the Conservatives, NDP, or Greens about this dictatorship run by the PMO's office. And let's face it, every member of Parliament is just a rubber stamping
couldn't-
ditto-head.
no,
None of them are
I-
allowed to say anything, or they get kicked out.
I disagree with you. You can't say that we didn't talk about this, we didn't talk about that. As I mentioned to you,
You made it sound like there was a difference between the parties, but there is none. You didn't articulate a difference.
It is.
And hold on, but that's an opinion. Your opinion is that there's no difference.
Yes,
right?
but I can substantiate my opinion. You didn't. You didn't point out any differences.
Well, Mark, you have to understand that I don't work for any one of these political parties. You do, so you're in a better position to articulate.
No, I'm
what
in a
you're
better
saying.
position because I've gone to jail 39 times for liberty, okay? To legalize marijuana, I've seen 39 prisons and jails. Amongst many civil disobedience, I've been doing this for 40 years. So to me, we've lived into some degree a tyrannical state for my whole lifetime in this country.
And if I could just interject here. Mark, I understand you're saying we haven't spoken about the dictatorship that we've gone through, but this dictatorship that you say that we couldn't see our families, we couldn't do this, I'll just take you to Australia. They're controlled numbers. You could count the number of people who have actually benefited from that type of tyranny or
No one benefits from tyranny.
Just one moment. And the fact that it's all about numbers and controlling COVID right now.
No,
So
it isn't. It's about government seizing control of their citizens through electronic tech means like vaccine passports,
Well,
forcing us to take vaccines that we don't want, or they're going to blackmail and extort
well,
us.
if you just allow me to finish for a moment. I feel that I understand what your party stands for. I understand we want to fight everything that the current government is doing in our own way. Right?
The current government, including all four parties, because they're identical in every way.
Okay, I'll take it. All four parties at that moment. But we also have to look at the health, the safety, and everything about the citizens of the country.
No, we don't.
Yes,
That's,
you do.
Well,
no.
that
The
is a
citizens, the health of each
fundamental fact.
individual is our own responsibility. You got to eat healthy. What did the government tell people to do? Stay inside, watch television, and get big. The average Canadian put on 14 pounds. Who is the most likely to die of COVID? Obese people, overweight people, people with diabetes. What did people do during this pandemic? They ate crap and they stayed at home.
So, Mark,
they
let me
should
ask
have
you-
been outside in the sun. They told us not to do that.
Okay, Mark, we cannot win you in a debate in terms of the COVID, so I'm not necessarily sure.
But actually, I'm going to take him on for a minute. So you're saying, okay, have you ever used your health card?
What health card?
Have you?
No,
that's it.
I have never been in a hospital in my entire adult life, so they owe me if I do get COVID.
Okay, is that because you've never been sick, or you choose not to go?
No, I've never been sick because I look after myself.
Okay, that's fine. Have you ever had family that have had to use the government?
Yeah, my
system?
brother certainly has. But
Right.
he's 70 years old in long-term care.
Yes, right. Isn't the government looking out for you when they give you certain services?
The government doesn't give a damn about our health. You're under some terrible misapprehensions.
Well, then allow
The
me,
government
because
doesn't give a damn about your health or safety. All they care about is controlling you.
that might be fine in your point of view, but I
Well,
realize,
that's the only point of view I know, just like you know, but I'm saying you're wrong.
and I'm saying you're wrong as
Okay, well then, yeah,
So
but I
we're-
can substantiate my point of view. You guys have just been doing this nuanced runaround for 40 minutes, and I don't even know if there was a solid point there. You told people to vote.
So,
You didn't
Colin-
give them a reason to vote,
Colin,
though.
let's talk about your party's
That's right.
policies.
And
on-
actually, I did give them
on
reasons
issues
to vote.
Why? What were those
if-
reasons?
Let's talk about your party's policy on immigration. Now,
Sure.
immigration is an issue that impacts the black community. Your party want to restrict immigration.
Yes.
Your party.
But not for why you think, or
No. I allowed you to think along the lines that your conscience dictates. I'm asking you to allow me the same privilege. I am saying to you, the current, under the Harper government, it was about 250,000 that the Harper government limited. Your party is complaining that this current government have raised the ceiling.
far too much.
And your party now is
We would take
indicating
125,000 to 150,000.
yeah, that you want 100 to 150, but also that you want to prevent persons from being able to take their parents or their grandparents to Canada. Why is your party such a replica of what we see going on in the U.S. right now.
Here's the thing. Most immigrants go to 3 major cities in Canada, Vancouver area, Toronto area, and Montreal area. The rents are unaffordable for the immigrants that are already here, who are new and don't have good jobs generally because it takes time to build up, and for the existing younger Canadian class of people trying to find rental accommodation. Everybody's building stuff for the wealthy foreigners, so they can easily find accommodation. But it's not easy to find accommodation in big cities that ordinary people can afford because too much pressure is being put on those cities from so many recent arrivals that it's pushing rents up beyond the affordability of ordinary Canadians.
What research do you have to justify that?
I didn't bring any research. If you don't,
but I'm saying,
I'm telling you that's what's happening. I lived in Toronto.
Bring your research and prove
you
it.
are challenging us that we're talking and running around without no
I want you to think about these ideas.
But I'm asking you, what
say
evidence do you have that it's the newcomers to Canada that are really pushing up the prices of homes?
Of course, it's obvious. If you take 300,000 new people every year, where are they going to go?
They go all over Canada.
No, they don't. They typically go to
Some of the
Montreal areas and Toronto area and Vancouver.
So I take it you're unaware that the provinces get an opportunity to nominate who
where
comes
the
there.
people-
Are
Yes.
you not aware
Yes.
of that program?
No.
Okay, so I'm telling you that's one way that there's a provincial nominee program, but immigration is just one of the issues that I have.
And I'm going to
with
jump
your
in on
party.
another. I'm going to jump in on one right here, and we're going to talk about immigration in a different way. We're going to talk about the temporary workers, right? One of the things that I've always found that people say is that the temporary workers are taking away jobs for lower income Canadians, right? And I believe that's the same point that you're saying you're making.
No, we don't make that
your
point.
Part. Okay, so what,
Well, it's
why? Okay, so
implied.
why?
It's
It's
implied.
implied.
Where?
It's implied.
Go ahead.
Hold on.
We should.
Hold on, give me a second. I
You
got
should
it
put what
here.
our platform is.
No,
I'm gonna-
it's implied on your platform that
gonna
you
get to it
want to
now.
restrict the amount of temporary workers because
Yep.
the workers are
Immigration.
taking away jobs from Canadian. And you and I well know, Mark, that a lot of these jobs
And I'm
that
gonna
these
show it.
workers are doing,
Yep.
Canadians don't want to do them.
Including new immigrants from, say, Somalia. They don't
Well,
want to do it
no,
either?
no,
Is that
I-
what you're
I would
saying?
agree
Or
that-
Eritrea?
No, I'm talking about
Are you saying
temporary.
that
But
new
some
I'm
are
immigrants
talking
coming
about
in.
temporary workers.
But some people
temporary
are
workers.
coming in
No, I
for
know,
that
but are you
intention.
telling me that all the immigrants we have, this is a 15% Muslim community. Are you saying Muslim Canadians are
hold on,
lazy,
hold on.
they won't do these jobs?
I never said that.
Well, then what are you saying?
What I am saying is
that
yes.
you indicated, your party, that
Are you saying black Canadians don't want these jobs that Mexican workers come and take? These temporary workers? Are you saying that black Canadians, along with white Canadians and other people, they just don't want these jobs?
Yes, I'm
I'm
going
saying
to.
that
I am.
Canadians, I'm not
See, to me, if we
I'm
didn't
not-
bring in
I'm not-
temporary workers,
hold on,
they would have to
hold on.
raise the wage rates to get Canadians to
No,
do
I
those
am
jobs.
not-
But it's easy for a Mexican to come here,
no, but-
live on next to nothing in communal housing, send all their money back to Mexico. I admire their hard work effort. They don't even just want to work 8 hours. They'll work 12 hours, 14
But it's
hours.
not just
because they're
Mexicans.
only
We
It's
also
not
have,
just Mexicans, bro.
I don't
It's
it's not just
just
Mexicans. We have
Because-
Jamaicans coming into the
Jamaicans,
farmlands. We've got Africans
Trinidadians.
coming, Trinidadians, everyone. It's all
Exactly.
over.
Well,
Everyone's
precisely, but
coming
are you-
in
And
the
they're
black
doing
community,
work
and
that a
they're
lot of
working hard.
Canadians do not want to do.
They'll do it
That's
if the
right.
prices goes up. But people also want cheap food. So they
So you can't- you can't
No, I'm
have
saying there's
everything.
competing forces. People want cheap
cheap
food, so we bring in foreign laborers, or people who want Canadian wages to go up so that it becomes worthwhile to work at these jobs. I'm saying we should err on the side of Canadians and keeping these jobs and making the
I'm gonna
farmers
say
and the
no-
But
producers
if I
pay
remember,
more.
If I remember clearly, your party was against raising the minimum wage. So
Yes, the minimum wage
No,
cuts
no,
black,
no,
young
Mark,
black
Mark,
Canadians off
here's what I'm saying.
of the wage.
How could
They don't
you-
get a job to
no,
begin
no.
with.
How could you, on one hand, saying that the foreign workers are stealing inadvertently from the Canadians, and I'm not coloring to say Somali Canadians,
No, I
black
don't- yeah,
Canadians,
and I want you to break it
Canadians.
down. It's
But
Canadians,
at the
period.
same time, you're saying you're against raising the minimum wage. How is
I'm
that?
against any minimum wage because I'm against all government interference in the economy. It's,
No, no.
it's a principle. I don't believe government interfering in the economy ever helps people, ever.
Well, Mark, that's
The
just...
marketplace has to be allowed to work. Otherwise, we have nothing but distortion and
But
corruption.
how do we know that
The
your
marketplace
marketplace
is gonna
policies
be-
would
is
not
gonna-
be a replica of enriching all your corporate donors that are sponsoring
First of
you?
all,
How do we know that?
my thing, because I believe in stopping all corporate handouts, all bailouts, all grants, loans, all tax benefits.
I saw that.
Yeah, and we want to get rid of all those things. We want a level playing field for all Canadians, and that includes getting rid of all the money that goes to oil and gas and all these subsidies to business. You know, the government gives $600 million to journalists every 5 years, and all those journalists work for big corporations. They work for big corporations that don't need our money. But the corporations and the government work hand in hand, and they feed each other. You know, when cannabis became legal, the Cannabis Act, the first thing they did was give liberal insiders access to the first rights to start these cannabis companies. So all the insiders got the
But
special
your
privilege.
party probably would have done the same.
No,
for the
we wouldn't.
PBC.
And
In
I'm
fact-
not, hold on,
No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
even going to get to which party did and what party did. I'm still going to get back to the temporary workers taking away, and he says the temporary workers are taking away jobs. And I think there's already been proven that some of these jobs, the reason they had to bring people in was because they weren't being done in the first place. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't that, oh, there were Canadians doing these jobs, and all of a sudden,
Well, that's not really the crisis.
Hold on, I'll let you
Yeah,
talk.
but you only give me 20 minutes. You had an hour.
No, we talked about other things and then we brought you in.
vaguely.
And you knew you were going to get that. We didn't hide that from you. Likewise, I was saying, it wasn't that all of a sudden, oh, Canadians, the Canadians were doing these jobs, and let's bring in foreign workers so that the corporations could make more money. What it was they weren't doing the jobs in the first place, so they had to. Same thing happened in the U.S. They had to bring in these people. And if they didn't bring in these people, and I know, and I can tell you people that I know would not go out and pick certain things because they don't want to. They'd rather have it be done by somebody that they feel is below them, right? I know people that sit on welfare and refuse, and I'm not going to say it's not a color or anything, but they sit on, and there's a job that they can go do for $15 or $16 an hour, right? But the sitting down at home on welfare is just easier for them.
Right, the welfare
Right.
system is wrong,
Generational
and if it does
Right.
that,
But
anything
it's-
that encourages laziness and indolence is a bad policy.
But I
I
have,
think you're making a mistake in assuming that all of us maybe come from the same political spectrum. Now, I might agree with some bits of what your party is saying,
Yeah.
but by no means I'm in agreement
What
with
we're-
all of what you're saying.
But here's the thing, we emphasize universal rights. We want safe female spaces, so
Yes,
these
those are things we
transgender
can get
ideology,
behind.
men out of, okay,
But
good.
you said
All right, and
you're-
protecting our rights. We all benefit when our charter rights are
But
protected.
Mark, you
We all
said
benefit
you
when,
want free spaces and all of that, but you can't seem to put forward or articulate to us what are the safe spaces that you're creating with all the. We just had an incident with the Muslim community
Right.
hearing on it. What?
what was the incident? One crazy person killed people.
Yes,
Well,
but
what
it-
happens when a Muslim person goes? Do we all blame all Muslims? No, that's ridiculous. No wonder
But I'm
Muslims
saying-
resent it when
but I'm
some
saying
Muslim
it's
person
the
goes
type of
crazy.
rhetoric that is coming from your party.
There's no rhetoric.
No, no,
That's
no.
one
It
crazy
is
person
the
doing a
type
bad
of
thing.
Trumpist rhetoric that's coming from your party that making a lot of people from the minority community uncomfortable. So I take offense to you saying that you're trying to create a safe space. What have you done? What have you done?
We don't listen. We
Tell
have
me
we have
one-
black
tell
Muslim
me
gay
one-
candidates, but
No,
we
no, no.
don't refer to them like that. We think we're all Canadians and we're all here under the same rights with the same aspirations, and we should have the same level playing field for all of us.
No,
But then
you
you're not
just
articulating
indicated
it
those
well.
People in the foreign workers.
Well, first of all, it's
Yes.
3 against 1 for one.
sorry.
And out of the 20 minutes you give me, I'll get about 7 minutes.
Wait,
You know, you guys got a show every week. You should just let me
Hey, hold on,
articulate
hold
my
on.
but
point
for
of
the
view.
sake of progress,
And I'm
though.
going to say something.
For the sake of progress.
In
yeah.
fairness to Mark, right?
Have I had
Yes.
30
Hold on, hold
seconds
on,
without
hold on.
interruption?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you have
No.
actually. We did
Mark,
interrupt
you
you
had
at the
like
start.
10 minutes
We did
without
let you at the start. But
Okay,
in
wait.
all fairness to you, right? We invited you, you accepted,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
We appreciate
Believe it or
you.
not, because of who we are, we're not going to not invite you again, right?
It's up to you. It's your show.
Right, but I'm just saying this is who we are. We don't mind you coming here and explaining, right? So
I haven't even had a chance to explain the
Well,
party
okay,
policy.
so
I've had a
Mark-
chance to deal with your issues that you bring up.
Okay.
I never got a chance to introduce anything.
So
The
just 2
issues that
seconds.
we
I'm sorry,
bring up
Brother
are the
Omar.
issues that are
But
sensitive.
Angel,
okay,
go ahead,
for
go
one moment.
No,
okay,
I think they
we
reflect
brought-
your bias, not the
Okay,
universal
Mark,
needs of the black community
Okay.
or any community.
The whole situation that we're here sitting around the table for today is for people to go vote. I understand this debate.
You didn't give them a good reason to
One
vote, by the way.
moment. For the sake of progress and for the people watching you right now, Mark, as a PPC party, what are you representing that us as a black community can
Can go vote for
appreciate
you.
what
Your-
you're
See,
standing
I would
for?
contend that there's nothing specific that you would benefit by that I won't benefit by.
Mm-hmm.
Because Canadians need honest governance that appeals, that doesn't play favorites,
Okay.
that doesn't appeal to black Canadians, doesn't appeal to gay Canadians, doesn't appeal to white Canadians.
But
And I would
society
say
does
most of
not.
our differences are not
Society-
between color, they're
unfortunately.
between wealth and affluence. There's the rich, and then there's the rest of us struggling down below. And I would say a white poor person has a lot more in common with a black poor person than a black rich person has with a black poor person. I would say wealth is the big divider in this country, and
Okay.
too many of us don't have enough of it because we're taxed to death, we're put in awkward positions where we can't travel, our businesses were closed, millions were unemployed, people had their businesses arbitrarily shut, the small business person I may add. And I will point out to you that the largest community of people who don't want to get vaccinated are black and indigenous people. They're the most reluctant to do it. So I'm ultimately defending them while he advocates that they should be
Now hold on,
forced to.
wait. Now listen, Mark,
Can I get a chance to answer?
I'm gonna give you a chance in a second. I'm gonna give
So
you.
That's a little bit of a
historically, black
stereotype.
people and indigenous people have been wronged by the health, by the government,
by the government,
as it
period.
relates to health care.
How is
So-
black people being, tell me, how do you
Well,
see
there were
black
a
people?
lot of experiments that went on
In Canada?
In the
Okay.
US.
No, I know about the Tuskegee.
And
term.
also-
I know all about that,
Okay.
but I'm talking Canada.
Take
We're
about
in
10
Canada.
okay,
Tell
we're
me
in
how
Canada.
blacks have been discriminated against here in this country.
No,
Have you been?
the-
Are you?
the-
Have
the-
you
the-
walked in a
the
black?
exact-
How can you walk in a black person's shoes and ask how have black people been discriminated? I came here and I can tell you straight up, right? Riding on the bus, somebody said, "Hey, nigga," and spit in my face.
Hey, I got
And
told
it-
"fuck you" 45 times today out on the
Right.
street, plus asshole, Nazi,
Hold
racist,
on, hold on.
sexist.
Okay.
But I
Anybody
get called
look
that
at-
abuse
No, no,
every
no, no.
day.
But
Is
did
that something
somebody
I should
look at
carry
you-
around with a badge of
did
honor?
somebody
No.
look at you and deal with you as color or just as a person? Did
First
you
of all,
get no?
You
Answer that question.
You can't uplift yourself by blaming others.
I'm
okay?
not blaming,
Yeah,
I'm
you
saying
are.
something that
You are.
happened.
First of all, some rude person called you a
Right,
name.
right.
That doesn't mean nothing.
No, but where you got to look at the background on why the person.
No,
and
you
the
don't.
name
You
the
ignore
person.
that person and go on with your life.
And I
the
did
most
go on,
important
but I'm
things
telling you what
that
happens.
every community needs are two loving parents at home, and black paternity is bad, as is white and other paternity. How come every wanted poster in Toronto is a black guy for shooting? The top 100 most wanted for shooting violent crimes in Toronto are black young males. Why is that? Because they don't have fathers, they don't have guidance, they turn to crime, and they turn to drugs. I was in
And if you go to
39 prisons.
Vancouver,
I've been
and
in
if you
39
go to
prisons,
Vancouver,
and
the
believe
top-
me,
the
every
top-
black
the-
man in prison had the same story. No father at home. No guidance, no direction, no tradition. And so he joins a gang.
All right, so let me take you to another part of Canada. Let me take you to Vancouver. At the top of their charts, you don't see black people at the top of the charts. At the top of the charts, you see East Asians, right? And you also see Chinese. You also see Chinese as well. That's the top of their,
Right, they're the fentanyl dealers typically.
of there, right? So you can pick on black people in Toronto, and I'm going to show you another part of Canada, and you'll see another set of
Okay, but
and
let's
another
look
set.
at why
And if you go
are the
out
top
west,
100
you
most
won't
wanted
see-
in Toronto black people?
No, let's
Because
not just look at
they-
Toronto. I want you to look at every place. I want you to look at every place
Well,
else.
first of all, that war on drugs has got to end, and we would end a lot of this problem. So
Right,
if we
so
legalize
that- so
drugs,
you- now
but
you're
I'm the
talking
only
about-
person
but
that
you
ever
said
talks about
you-
that.
But wait,
Right? When they said
Mark,
defund the police, I
but
thought,
Mark,
how about
let's
defunding the
address-
drug war?
let's
How about we
address
end the
a few
drug war
things.
and we can end all this?
So if you're gonna call and talk about the black people in Toronto, then I'm gonna talk about the rest of Canada. And the rest of Canada, and I started with Vancouver.
But why don't you deal with the black
No, no,
people?
but
After all, you are
here's
concerned with
what
black
I'm
issues.
saying.
Why don't you acknowledge that there's a problem in every community?
Yes,
and that it's
and
up
we
to
will
you
acknowledge.
to raise your own self. It's
Right,
not
and I believe-
blaming others will not get
But we
anyone
didn't blame.
anywhere.
We didn't blame. If you listen to
No,
this,
I heard a lot of blame
I would
going on.
just
if you
like to
listen
go
this
back.
podcast,
I would
you heard
just
us
like
say
to go back
that
to.
we have to take it upon ourselves
Yeah.
to encourage each other to vote and to get out.
That's
you might
nothing.
not like.
Voting,
You
listen,
might not
the
like
reason
that.
I went
but
to
that's-
jail
but
39 39
not
times. I went to
Right.
jail 39 times because voting doesn't work. Voting
you,
is once
right.
every 4 years you get to vote. That's meaningless. Your one
So
vote didn't make.
How is your party going to get power if voting
If
is meaningless?
voting doesn't work, then nobody
because
should vote.
there's no difference between the four parties you were talking about. Between
So
the Greens and
how
the
is your party
if
going to
there-
get in if nobody votes?
if
If voting
there's
is
no
meaningless,
difference
I'm just saying,
so why are you
you
playing the
can
game
vote,
then?
and
Hold
you
on,
might
hold
find
on.
it useful, but that's not
So
how change
why
happens.
are you
Change
running?
happens by civil disobedience.
Why are you running if there is no sense to vote? Why are, hold on, let me see this.
Yeah.
The last I checked, right?
Yeah.
Look at this, right? Vote Mark Emery, London,
Yeah,
North
and
Center.
that campaign
Why?
4 weeks a year, but I spent my whole life going to jail on principle.
Come back to the
So I've
vote.
got-
You're telling people that voting doesn't make sense. I just said, come to my community, let's vote. And you said, why that's wrong, because voting doesn't. So then why are you not, then rightfully what you should be doing, you shouldn't be here. You should be on the streets with a gun talking about civil disobedience. Then you're in the
I
wrong
usually
place.
do. I'm always
so
talking
then
about
why are you here talking about voting, knowing you're coming on
I'm
the show?
talking about the difference between
And why
the
are
four
you-
parties and our party. Our party is different.
No, but you're gonna you need the vote to accomplish then.
Yeah, but I'm not going to get elected. But
then
I'm
you're
not
being
going
a
to.
hypocrite.
That's the bottom
I'm not
line.
going
Then
to win.
you are
The
being
vote
a
is
hypocrite
important.
Says you.
because you said
Says you.
vote by your own words. Voting
Because
does
it's an
not make
election.
sense.
It's an election. The only thing you do in an election is vote, but the
Okay.
rest of our lives are not an election.
But
We
then
don't
it's
run
so
for
easy-
office.
so
We
easy-
run for office
Mark?
once every 4 years for a week, for a month.
Okay, so
the
just-
rest of it
just-
matter, but
just
that's why
going
you said
back-
Our
use the vote.
citizenship isn't determined by voting. It's determined
Going
by
back-
staying
okay.
vigilant about our
Okay,
liberties.
Thank you. Just going back, everyone needs to vote.
Right.
And then I just don't
No,
agree.
they don't.
Wait.
If you see no
wait,
purpose in
Mark,
voting,
let me,
do not
could I
vote.
get my chance?
Could
I get my chance?
Let's give Angel a
Voting
chance.
is a right. And just to answer one question that you mentioned, and you totally addressed that, the number of people who are not getting vaccinated are black and indigenous people. I need to address that for you. And there's a reason why maybe there's a big disparity over there, because like, honestly, Mark, I studied
By the way, this is a
drugs.
bullshit vaccine.
Wait,
They shouldn't get it.
Wait
It's
a
a
minute.
totally terrible
okay,
vaccine.
let me finish,
Just
please.
allow
Could you
Ingrid
allow me to
to finish
speak?
your point.
And I'm speaking on behalf of women. There's a lot of women who've suffered. They can't have kids. Some of them have so many problems, traumatic problems, because of the drugs that have been tested. And these are the immigrants who are coming to. These are immigrants coming from Africa. Where do the drugs that are tested, like, okay, you want to go on a test drug, right? And where do those drugs end up? Do you know how many people have suffered in Africa because of the drugs that have been tested in Canada, in the US, in all these countries? They end up in Africa. And those people who were products of those drugs that were tested many years ago, if you look down the history, go on the internet, Pfizer has been sued so many times because of different drugs that.
Right, so why do you
Okay,
trust
so
Big
let me
Pharma with
finish.
this
No,
bullshit
no.
vaccine?
Let me
This is a
just go
terrible
to that.
vaccine
I'm
produced
just-
by the same people that did
I'm
that.
just going to why the trauma that we feel as black people when we think about certain things, because you're putting that as this, oh, there's a higher number over there. But I'm just trying to address the trauma, and maybe because of that trauma, whoever else is in government can understand why there is a big
Well, I think we should
disparity there.
respect people's right to reject vaccines because now they're being
It's not
excluded
about
from
rejecting
concerts,
it.
music halls,
It's
restaurants,
about,
airplanes.
we're not disputing that.
I never heard you
Just
stand
saying-
up for it. In the 40 minutes I listened to you, you didn't say
mentioned that, so
this
it's like-
vaccine passport is wrong. It
It's not
discriminates
about that.
against you.
But
It's
Mark,
about what
you
it is,
can't
the test.
dictate my position
Yeah.
that I need to articulate. You're of the opinion that the vaccine passport is wrong. And
It's
that's
totally
okay.
wrong. It's
No,
totally-
That's okay. I'm not beating you for that.
No.
Okay?
And
I
I-
am trying to say to you, in the wider context, as it relates to the issues that impact the community, the COVID vaccine is really not on our top list.
And yet that's the reason for the dictatorship. And
And
yet you failed to even draw that conclusion.
And I believe we opened the show talking about the vaccine passport, the loss of freedoms, right?
You mentioned it was possible. You didn't take a...
I said no, but I said,
mentioned
where
it.
do you stand? My words were, where do you stand? Right? We know where you stand. We know, and I said that.
And the other four parties
where
are totally
we
down
stand.
with it. They agree on everything to do with this dictatorship.
Now-
they have supported the Liberal government entirely without objection.
Thank you very much, Mark. I got to hold on for a minute. To all our viewers, I want to thank everybody for being a part of
Yeah,
Real
thanks for
Talk.
inviting me too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This has been a very
Yeah, this
heated,
is
and
fun.
this is why it's called Real Talk, Straight Talk. Believe it or not, people, we're going to continue this conversation off camera, right? And we're actually going to record it, and it will be put up on the site. We're going to talk to Mark for another 20 minutes. Once again, thank you for being a part of Real Talk, Straight Talk. We are here each and every Tuesday. This show will be rebroadcast on Thursday from 7, and you will then be able to catch it on our YouTube channel. It goes up there on Friday. I want to thank my crew once again. Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Pastor Charmaine, thank you very much.
Charmaine, thanks for giving me your seat.
All right. Omar, thank you. Angel, thank you very much.
And thank you for inviting me, Angel, too.
This
That's
is
great.
what we call a fade to black.
We're neighbors in the same community, so right
You
next
are?
door. Oh,
Okay.
yeah, we live next door.
This is what we call a fade to black. We'll see you.
Yeah.